has been wide open. We discuss our top 10 fantasy football winners and losers for the first 2 days of movement. All this and more. It's a new episode of the IBT podcast coming right at you.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fix this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, and this is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. The first wave of NFL free agency has come and gone, shaking up the fantasy football landscape forever. We'll certainly chat all about that tonight. I'm your host, Seth Wilcock. Feeling good. Got out on a couple bike rides over the past 24 hours, so I'm rolling, ready to go. And no, I'm not alone. I'm joined by a man who is a big business, light ranching son of a bitch, a proud member of the Bull Ring, wondering what the hell is going on down in Houston. Texans truther Eric Romoff. Eric, how you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm going to get called out and immediately confirm that call out and step right into the bias. I was not this guy heading into Nick Casario's tenure as our general manager, but I have faith. If he's making a move, it is for a good reason, even if that good reason may not be readily apparent. But he's taken the addition by subtraction play so far with this O-line.
Hey, that's what you got to do out there sometimes, right? Like zig when other people's are zagging. So, Eric, good to have you in. Good to see you're still keeping the faith down there in the great state of Texas. We're also joined by a man who is back looking cooler than ever, maybe. Our entertainment and NFL betting expert here at IBT, Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Here we go again, brother. How are the vibes up there in the beautiful New England area?
Well, the sun has been out for the last 2 days. It's been warm. I feel like I could have entered the Royal Rumble at 1 and won the whole thing. That's just, if that's not proof that seasonal depression hits like crack, I don't know what is. Listen, this free agency has already been brutal for us up here in New England. This like people talk about loving that dirty water. There's something fucked up in that water because there is a disease that permeates the New England Patriots that makes us terrible at free agency every single year. So we'll get into it more though. I have some stuff to say.
Yeah, just what from I've been seeing on the internet, man, the Boston area not content with what's happening up there. Hopefully a better April than it was a March for y'all. We're also joined by the man who sets the tone for this particular program. He's a Yinzer. He's a Ginger. He's a former IUP Crimson Hawk, behind the scenes producer Kyle Scott. Jim, how's it going out there in the Berg? Beautiful weather right now, but time is certainly standing still for all the Yinzers out there in the city of Pittsburgh as they await the decision of one Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone is eagerly waiting to see what'll happen with Aaron Rodgers. He could be the quarterback here. I would love to have him in the Steel City. If he needs somewhere to sleep, he can sleep on my couch. I will gladly take Aaron Rodgers on the Steelers. But otherwise, things are doing great. It was almost 70 degrees out here, man. So the water's flowing. The people are moving and grooving. Things are great.
Good. Glad to hear. And I appreciate you offering up the couch there for a guy, Aaron Rodgers. I've slept on that couch. It's a good little couch. So I'm sure he appreciates that. I'm sure he'd appreciate you, Kyle. I think you guys would enjoy many of the similar things in life a little bit. So that's good to hear. Also, shout out to the IBT family who's riding shotgun with us tonight. As always, please like this video if you enjoy this type of content. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And looks like we got our guy Albert, who is in here up and at him. saying good evening, IBT. Good evening to you, Albert. We appreciate you as always, buddy. We got Jamie hanging out with us as well. What's up,
Jamie.
guys? What's up, Jamie? Good to see you, buddy. We got Ben in the chat. Ben is dropping some fire right now over on the IBT site. Every day he's coming out with some articles. What does this trade mean for fantasy football? What are the biggest winners and losers of free agency mean for fantasy football? So, Ben, we appreciate everything you're doing. Appreciate you hanging out with us as always. And we got Angie Hatfield in the chat. Good evening, IBT crew.
Angie.
Good evening, Angie. I met Angie a couple years ago out at the Fantasy Football Expo. She's awesome. She's a super cool person. So excited to have her riding with us. And speaking of the Fantasy Football Expo, while you guys are over on the inbetweenmedia.com website looking at Ben's fantasy breakdowns of all those recent moves, make sure you're checking out the draft night out tickets we got over there as well. That's our live fantasy football draft at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio this August. If you want to come hang out with us, draft with us and our 200 closest fantasy football friends, this is the event for you. We'll have a shot wheel spinning, giveaways will be going off, everything in between. Eric, we're also hosting a golf scramble the day before the IBT Classic for the first time. Starting to move some tickets for that as well. So it's, I feel like people kind of like getting that like springtime buzz during the winter. People are like, nah, leave me alone. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing for summer. And now it's like, we're here. We're starting to creep closer and closer, and tickets moving off the shelves, man.
Yeah, springtime buzz is definitely a big part of it, right? You get to mid-March and it's like, what am I doing this summer? And you start laying out all your plans, and all of a sudden calendar fills up like that. But also the rapid fire pace of the NFL offseason, right? We went straight from the Super Bowl to about 10 days later into the combine to about a week later into free agency to about 3 weeks later we're talking about, right? Like the NFL never sleeps. The season is 6 or so months long, but there is no reprieve in the stream of news and newsworthy events. And I think people are starting to string together like, man, draft season's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
Bo in Canton's going to be here before we know it. I better go punch my ticket for the IBT Classic. I better go pick my spot for draft night out. And I don't know if this is too bold to take. I'm almost positive that someone is going to hit a hole in one at this scramble and win themselves bowl tickets. I feel it in the air.
Yeah, that I forgot to mention that at the golf scramble. If you do, I think it's hole 9. If you had a hole in one and ace on it, you get some Super Bowl. What is it? Super Bowl 60 next year? What are we looking at? Is that 50, 60?
60.
Okay, 60.
Yeah.
I knew it was an nice, even, clean number. So yeah, get you guys some tickets over to the IBT Classic as well. Come try to hit some holes in ones there. And Steve, do you have like your home draft planned yet? Like a date set? Because we started trying to put a date together this past week. You know, it was like, holy shit, everyone's calendar already filled up. But one of my buddies out of town like the entire month of August overseas.
Yeah, so it's tough because my home league draft is essentially my college friends draft, and I went to school in Florida, so it's a bit tougher to get to. We usually do it right around my birthday every year, so right around end of August, we get together and draft. So I usually wind up turning whatever age I am turning that year with my boys, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll love to hear it, guys. We got a stacked episode for you. We'll start with some front and center, some NFL free agency winners and losers. And then we got a game of a little off the top. That's our cut one game. We'll talk more free agency movement. And also St. Patrick's Day right around the corner. So we'll chat about that as well. Let's kick it off here with a little front and center.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place you can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Keep come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
Some major movement in our fantasy football rankings for the 2025 season. We're going to break that down now. And let's start with perhaps the biggest news of the free agency cycle. Sam Darnold signs a 3-year, $100.5 million deal with the Seattle Seahawks after they shipped Geno Smith to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick last Friday. They also moved DK Metcalf to the Steelers over the weekend for a 2nd-round pick and released veteran wide receiver Tyler Lockett. Eric, is that why Darnold exit free agency for you as a fantasy football loser, just because there's so many missing pieces here now out in the great city of Seattle?
Yeah, there's a couple of things at play here. It's kind of odd because it feels like Darnold is one part a loser and one part a winner. If you would have told him a year ago he was going to sign $100 million contract with $55 million guaranteed, he himself would have laughed in your face. So very much so a winner in terms of his personal finances and what he was able to parlay his incredible season last year into. But then you look at the context of the circumstance he is walking into here with the 2025 Seattle Seahawks. You mentioned it's JSN and then a pile of sticks. Jake Bobo
baby.
He was on a graphic for the new look Seattle Seahawks offense, which is all you need to know about this offense. Obviously, they're very likely to go out and address wide receiver by way of the draft. But part of the reason, at least in my estimation, why Sam Darnold is cashing this big check is because he was in an ideal circumstance with the Minnesota Vikings last year. Arguably the best receiver in all of the land there running downfield for him. One of the best receiving corps top to bottom, and above average offensive line. And for my money, the best coach in all of the NFL. Now he goes into a situation where all of these things that were strengths and helped build him up are legitimate question marks, if not weaknesses, right? So we look at that stretch, to finish out the regular season and into the playoffs where he and his play probably cost himself $40 or $50 million because he was not able to respond to pressure. I think he's going to walk right back into that type of circumstance week over week over week with Seattle. So, I'm glad he was able to, to secure the bag. You love to see that. Honestly, if I were him, I probably would have taken a long, hard look at that very lucrative 1-year deal with Minnesota. Let some of the stink of the end of last year kind of wash away, and then try to go hit the market in 2026. But we'll see what happens. He's got a hose, so if they're airing it out, he can get it downfield.
Yeah, and I get the sentiment of going back to Minnesota on the 1-year deal, but at the same time, you got to get the guaranteed money, right? You got to get that security, you got to get that life-changing money for your family. So I understand it. With that being said, Steve, like this feels very much like, hey, maybe they go out on day 2. They had a guy like Jalen Royals, maybe like Jalen Noel, someone like that. I feel like there could be some additional support coming in for him. Jake Bobo, no scrub by any means, but hey, Jake Bobo's out there.
He's a scrub. He's a scrub. We're not going to pretend
he's
not.
Were you about to say Jake Bobo's out there? Yeah, if that's what it means to not be
like
a scrub.
He's there.
Okay.
Like
he's definitely there.
All I'm saying,
like he's alive. He has a pulse. Sure.
All I'm saying here, Steve, and my question to you is like, Sam Darnold was currently going as the quarterback 28 anyways on Underdog. Stafford, quarterback 26, Cam Ward, quarterback 24. Kind of looking at these pieces here, is QB 28 really like the worst price for Darnold? And like, I'm sure he'll get steamed up a little bit by August, but like Geno Smith, kind of a low end quarterback the past 2 years. So is that kind of what you think Darnold could be? And if so, maybe QB 28 ain't the worst value for him.
Yeah, it couldn't be worse, right? He almost couldn't be ranked lower. There's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So
yeah,
like it almost couldn't be lower unless people really thought that bench players were going to outscore him. So, QB 28, yeah. I'll take that deal all day long, right? Like,
would you do that over Stafford at QB 26 or Cam Ward at QB 24?
No.
Okay.
No. What's he like? I'll tell you what. While Sam Darnold is a loser in this free agency, I think this is definitely a win for like JSN, right? Like, I think that's kind of how we would have to look at this.
Compared to what else he could have had out there, getting Sam Darnold, a guy that we know can make the most of his wide receivers. Like,
yeah.
Not
only that, but JSN fantasy wise is now the only show in town.
Yeah.
So JSN is almost like a first round wide receiver in my mind now, because what else are they throwing to?
Andy's saying, are you sure Jake Bobo is not a scrub? LOL. All
right. Let me say this. All right. Jake Bobo is not a scrub if he and I were on the team together. But considering that there's NFL talent around him, yeah, he's a scrub. Right? Like, that's just what it is.
I'm not sure.
You're not. He couldn't beat out the corpse of Tyler Lockett.
He's played decent when DK Metcalf has been out and he's had to play the X. When's
the last
okay.
time you like heard his name and you were like, oh, he's having a good game, where it wasn't like a busted coverage 70-yarder?
I don't know, man. Keep an eye out for Jake. Keep an
college
eye out.
Is the correct answer.
Again, I think we'll see some more movement here. There's still some free agents.
Yes.
Hey, maybe they bring Tyler Lockett back on a cheaper deal.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone like a Keenan Allen get brought in or something like that to try. I mean, they can't go and sign Darnold to this massive deal and then be like, hey, we're in it to suck. Like, that's not a rebuilding move.
So originally I had the Seahawks on here as a loser because it's just such a head scratcher what they've done with their offseason. And that's the point, right? Like the one that Steve hit there. You can't bring in Sam Darnold for this kind of money if you're heading into a rebuild, right? Like you think that you're going to be able to pull it together, or you're going to be able to, maybe whip together some sort of bridge year, right? But
yeah,
your point about the wide receiver picture not being fully complete yet is bang on.
Yeah.
They're absolutely going to draft someone. They're going to bring in. You said Keenan Allen. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and try to like sniff around the corpse of Cooper Kupp while he's out there.
Sure.
There's still some. There are several guys walking in off the street that can.
There has to be a speedster out there they can get, right? Like someone who can just I don't know, someone who's just a burner that can run down the field. Darius Slayton was the perfect fit.
I was about to say that was DeMarcus Robinson. He just got signed a few hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
So but there's still plenty of talent out there. And as a result of this, as a result of Darnold moving on and Daniel Jones signing a 1-year deal with the Colts, JJ McCarthy, now the presumptive starter in Minnesota. Steve, what do you like about the opportunity for the former Michigan Wolverine and national champion? And will you be targeting someone like JJ McCarthy in your fantasy football drafts at all?
So I love the opportunity for him, right? I mean, we saw Sam Darnold turn his entire career around. I think Eric was smoking that good stuff that Aaron Rodgers does when he said that Kevin O'Connell's the best coach in the NFL. But like, I think he's a good coach. I think he's a very good coach. I think this is a great opportunity for JJ McCarthy. Am I drafting him? Absolutely not. I don't like the talent.
QB 22 right now.
Listen, you're going to be frustrated. If you're expecting like,
we thought we were going to be frustrated with Sam Darnold. He was QB1.
Yeah, but we knew he had arm talent, right? Like that at least happened. And I think even that was like a perfect set of circumstances. JJ McCarthy has never been a great thrower of the football. He can throw it really hard, which is like a testament to his arm strength. But outside of that, it's not really his game. He's kind of more of a mobile guy. He's in a run heavy scheme in college. I just don't think this is really a great fit for JJ McCarthy. So I think where it's a great opportunity for him, I think this is a significant downgrade for the Vikings as a whole. I would have preferred them keep Darnold, but they committed to McCarthy in the first round. So you kind of had to, I'm not surprised that they didn't offer a long-term deal to Sam Darnold because you can't draft someone in the first round, have some guy come in that's supposed to be a bridge. He does really well. And then you're like, well, fuck it. Like that just isn't how it works. You get fired for doing that.
Yeah, I totally understand. And he is a winner for you. So you have to at least like JJ McCarthy went from being a guy that was potentially going to be undrafted in most leagues, even like your underdogs that you're throwing darts at the quarterbacks, your super flexes potentially even, but he's definitely going to be on the board now. And, quarterback 22 before this. And I think that could get steamed up even a little bit more. And like, maybe it's Joe Flacco behind him. Maybe it's someone like that. Maybe they make a move for a veteran, but, to me, I'm cool with JJ McCarthy at QB 22, Eric. I'm cool with taking that shot every single time right now.
Yeah, I think I probably am too, right? He definitely fits the mold in that like safe and upside balance as an upside guy. And this is not just take lock, right? Part of the reason why I'm willing to be in front of a hot microphone saying that Kevin O'Connell is the best coach in the NFL is because he can get the absolute most out of the most random assortment of quarterbacks that we have seen in recent memory, right? So he gets the benefit of all of those positives that I was listing off with Sam Darnold, and not the least of which is, again, one of the most talented receiving cores or group of receivers in all of the NFL. So you talk about that with a guy that can run a little bit, going around the likes of maybe a couple of rookies, maybe Sam Darnold himself or Geno Smith. I'll take the upside there. And not exactly a high degree of confidence. I'm a little bit closer to Steve's end of the spectrum that he's got some deficiencies in his game, but the circumstance, I think
I've
should at
always
least
been the high
balance
guy
that
on
out.
this program on JJ McCarthy. I will say that.
recall.
I've always. I mean, look, yeah, we had a little wager on him last year, so you know how that goes, Eric, for sure. But
Ugh.
another byproduct of the Seahawks moves puts DK Metcalf on the Steelers with a 4-year, $132 million deal. George Pickens enters the final year of his rookie contract with the assumption that it'll either be Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson back under center. GP was the wide receiver 40 last season, despite seeing 45 more targets than the next closest wide receiver on that team. That was Calvin Austin. He still only did have 103 targets, though. So it's like, I feel like, maybe it's not a volume thing. It just feels like a weird fit with him and DK. They both kind of primarily play that X receiver spot. The offense, pretty low volume passing offense in general with Artie Smith. And I think if they're willing to adapt, if they do go out and get Aaron Rodgers and throw it around the yard a little bit, this could be okay. But I just don't trust Arthur Smith as far as I can throw him. And now you get, another pretty high profile, high demanding wide receiver. It just worries me a little bit, Steve, just like the overall, I guess, cohesion of this move more than you can't go down that far, from 103 targets, but it just, I don't know.
You know what? I don't know what they're going for. Because you're right. This doesn't, on paper, this doesn't fit at all. Right? They both want the targets. They both want to play the X.
We felt like Cooper Kupp, right? We kind of thought
that would have made a lot
right?
more sense. Unless the Steelers really intend on turning back the clock and being we're going to fight you, physically beat you up, every game. This makes no sense, right? And they still don't have a quarterback. And even if they do get Aaron Rodgers, I hate to we need to stop bringing up Aaron Rodgers in this program because I feel bad that I'm the anti-Aaron Rodgers guy, but he's 41 years old and he wasn't good last year. So this is not going to be good for anybody. They should go out if they want to even have a prayer of keeping these two guys happy. There is one quarterback who will make all of that happen. Jameis Winston. You need to go get Jameis Winston. That's who you need to get. Because who on earth is going to be willing to force feed guys more than Jameis Winston? Listen, if you want to have the most fun this season and make this team the most exciting team to watch in football, you go sign Jameis and you just go nuts. However, you're right. I don't trust Arthur Smith as far as I can throw him either. And he's a rather large guy, so I can't throw him very far.
Good stash, though. Good stash. Let's be honest.
Great stash, and that's about all I have nice to say about him.
Yeah.
So, out of spite alone, I can almost see DK Metcalf being rendered to a screen wide receiver. Because one thing Arthur Smith will always do is he'll spite the fantasy community. He'll bite his nose to spite his face. And now they don't have Najee Harris, and I know everyone's talking about that. That's a great upgrade. That's oh, good, he's gone. It's not the offensive line has been playing great in Pittsburgh anyway. There's a lot of holes going on that created the problems that they have. I don't think wide receiver was necessarily their issue. I think they would have been better off signing Justin Fields back, but Justin Fields obviously was not interested in reuniting unless they really committed to him, and they weren't willing to do that. So
$10 more million guaranteed. He had to go to the Jets.
He had to go. George Pickens. This makes no sense. I don't understand why they would go get DK Metcalf when they have George Pickens. You just put a hat on a hat, right? That's kind of how it feels.
We got our guy Geist. We'll call him Geist. Saying it in the chat. Wait till Pitt drafts Luther Burden. Listen, I'm a Pittsburgh fan. I'm not a Luther Burden fan. So
I would like that. Let me say this about Luther Burden. I would like a team to draft Luther Burden and use him in that Deebo Samuel-esque role,
right. That's
running back, wide receiver hybrid. I think that'd be great for them. I actually think that actually would be a good pick because he's really good at short, intermediate stuff and taking things a long way.
Yeah, Eric, and any final thoughts here? Just kind of wrapping up here on the Steelers situation. Obviously, we don't have a ton of clarity right now, so we can speculate that it's going to be Russ or Aaron Rodgers, and then by the time this is live tomorrow, people might, things might change.
Yeah, I think it's funny, and the reason why Pickens is arguably a loser here is less to do with DK Metcalf coming in and more to do with the reason why you were stumbling over a third name to offer up as an example. The quarterback market is so dried up right now, right?
Abysmal.
Arguably the best case scenario is Russell Wilson comes back, and we saw exactly how well that played out for him last year when he wasn't competing with DK Metcalf for
Wide receiver
right?
40.
Yeah. So, all told, not exactly how
Eric,
Pickens would have.
Can I throw a name out there for quarterback, and maybe this excites the Pittsburgh fan base? Jackson Dart.
Sure.
I just don't think. I think we'd have to move up at this point, and
I think you get him in the first round. I think
I would
the
be
first round pick.
If we're gonna make, I think we'd have to move up top 15 to get Dart at this point. My opinion is like either just go out and spend up, what it's gonna take to get to number one. We have a little bit of firepower we can extinguish for
You
that.
don't want number one this year.
Or if not, go sign Flacco, go sign Jameis. Let's get a bad season. Let's go get Archie or a guy Drew Aller out here and keep him in the Keystone State. So that's kind of where I am. Angie saying in the chat, if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, I'm going to need an after dark reality show highlighting the drama there this season.
Yeah.
The over-under set at 3 fist fights in the Pittsburgh locker room this year.
I think
arguably would be the most explosive offense in all of the NFL.
I think it would be fun. I'm here for Rodgers. Come on home. Kyle's got a spot for you out there. And kind of staying with the Steelers, but also someone that Steve mentioned here. Eric, someone exiting the Steelers organization is Najee Harris on a 1-year, $9.5 million deal with incentives to become a Los Angeles Charger. This could also make Jaylen Warren a potential winner. Steelers will probably likely, add somebody during the draft, but he's coming back likely on a tender unless someone's willing to pay a second-round pick for him, which nobody is in such a loaded class. So where do you think this leaves the value for Najee Harris, though, who is going out to the Chargers, and he's doing it after 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons as well?
Yeah, I mean, his value definitely takes a pretty considerable uptick, right? Where it lands, it's kind of hard to say. Najee Harris is one of these players that a lot of people in the fantasy community have been burned by. Those that haven't been personally burned by him just kind of look at him as sort of a replacement level type player.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he steams up quite as much as he necessarily should. But I love this landing spot. We talked about this landing spot prognosticating a few weeks ago, right? We look at the Chargers. Greg Roman still has that job somehow, so they're going to be super run oriented. And despite being very run oriented, they didn't really have an answer at the running back position heading into 2025. It was nearly 73% of their running back workload was out the door and vacated. So Najee Harris steps right back in. More of a ham and egger, right? About 3.9 yards per carry for his career. But if he's going to walk into a role that is giving him a considerable volume, I think that he can capitalize on that. So I definitely think he's going to be a value. I think we can potentially see his touchdowns take an upswing this year, and all of this on a relatively affordable contract for the Chargers. So I think it was a win all around, honestly.
Steve, RB33 right now in Underdog Fantasy is Najee Harris. How far do you think he moves up, and how far would he move up to be willing to draft him? Because I think there is potential low end RB1 upside, high end RB2 upside here with Najee Harris, assuming the Chargers don't go out and add a young name as well.
Yeah, he's a tough one, right? Because you have to be okay with what Najee Harris is, and that's
Slaughter, ham and egger.
He's just kind of a slower guy, right? He just isn't that fast. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. So a lot of times I get on this program and I bitch and moan about people's 40 times, right? And Najee Harris is a perfect example of someone whose 40 time is a direct impact on what he can do on the field because he can't outrun a linebacker. So yes, he will get you 4 yards a carry, but the problem is at most he's going to get you 10. So you have to be okay with that. You have to hope he falls into the end zone a lot. So
yes, yep.
If he winds up in that RB2 price tag eventually, I'm out on Najee Harris because most weeks you're going to be relying on him falling into the end zone, scoring a touchdown, where J.K. Dobbins was actually busting off big runs last season. Najee Harris just doesn't really do that, and they don't throw to their running backs in a Jim Harbaugh system. It's just not how they operate.
Maybe
I don't know why.
Will, though, because Najee, does have pretty nice hands.
He does, but it doesn't really matter if the system isn't tailored to that. And with Justin Herbert also doesn't love to throw. Like, I mean, when they had Eckler, I guess it was a little different. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go get someone like an Austin Eckler type to spell Najee Harris.
Yeah.
And that kills his value altogether. And at this point, honestly, even RB33, I think you could get more upside plays at RB in that realm, right? That could land higher, that aren't going to rely on just touchdowns. I need someone a little more explosive.
Okay. I think I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm kind of right in the middle. Like I would be fine if that price tag stays right, in the late RB20s, low RB30s.
I don't know if you have the numbers around. You know who's around him in that number?
Yeah,
there's a guy in my head like Rashad White.
Marion Hampton was right around that area. So was
I'd like that.
A couple of the different rookies as well. So I'll pull the rankings.
At this point, I would probably say I'd take most rookies that are like getting the decent play. Marion Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, guys like that. Obviously, Ashton Genty is going to be way too overpriced. But like guys like that, hell, I'd even take Trey Benson instead.
No, you're going too far.
That's a little
Pacheco,
FSU bias creeping.
Yeah,
through, although I think Benson is set up for a nice year.
Pacheco, Ramondre Stevenson, ETN. That's kind of the range we're in with Najee right now.
So I mean, Ramondre Stevenson's probably a little bit better. Pacheco is probably in a little bit better situation depending on the draft, right? I'm going to say this because you can bookmark it, and I want everyone who's watching this to bookmark it right now. Trey Benson is going to outperform RB33. So like that's
brother.
Listen, they've already come out and said he's their 1A, right? And he is more talented than James Conner. This is only a matter of time.
This is a free agency show, and Steve's out here hijacking it with some more Trey Benson propaganda.
I mean,
don't fall for it.
It's not really propaganda to say a guy is going to perform better than RB33, right?
That's
like
propaganda.
Fairly low bar.
We're moving on.
I'll take the guy who has a job in Najee Harris more.
Agreed. Steve, we chatted yesterday briefly on the phone. You were rather dismayed, to say the least, with the Patriots' moves or their
work on that one?
Lack of moves. You're calling Drake Maye a loser. Is that because they've only added Mac Hollins on a 2-year, $8.4 million deal at wide receiver so far? Is it just like the lack of getting a deal done with one of these guys? Like, I think everyone knew they were after Chris Godwin, allegedly offered more than $20 million more on a larger deal or $10 million, than the Bucks, and still chose to go back. So is that really like the core of why you think Drake Maye is a fantasy football loser, and going down your rankings after this?
Yeah. And listen, like, this is about to be a real, like, I'm about to read the riot act to the New England Patriots right now, because if I was Drake Maye, I'd honestly consider asking for a trade at this point. Like, I would be so fucking insulted that they didn't.
Brother, you got a whole draft.
I don't give a fuck what is going on. Every other young quarterback in this league is being just smothered with talent around them. JJ McCarthy's got like 8 wide receivers who would be the best wide receiver on this friggin' team right now. Like, every good quarterback, their team is going all in. The Bengals have basically said, we are not even going to bother playing defense. We'll just give you the 7 points and we'll just outscore you. They are committing to it. JJ McCarthy, Caleb Williams, Lamar Jackson, Patrick, they're all getting talent around them. And Drake Maye stuck with what? Pop Douglas? This is ridiculous. They're like, oh, well, they offered $10 million more to Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin plays in Florida. It's nice weather. It's shit up here. We finally got a nice day for the first time in 7 months. Like, you need to, like, Drake Maye's on his rookie deal. You paid Chris Godwin $30 million for the rest of his rookie deal so that you don't fuck up your development of your young quarterback. This is stupid the way they are going about this. And if I was Drake Maye, I'd be pissed. I would be letting everybody know that I am furious with the way they went about this. And I'd be like, you better go get somebody now. I don't give a shit who it is, but they better have name recognition and at least 6,000 yards in their career.
We got guys in the chat saying for Austin Hooper.
Like, this
big
is
retain.
To me, like, I understand. I don't think they're done. Like, Stephon Diggs is still out there. There's still some Amari Cooper still out there. I still think they continue to add here, regardless of what happens. I'm from here until the draft, I'm still taking the shot at QB 15 every single fucking time with Drake Maye. I mean, he did the same thing last year. He's on a quarterback 1 pace. with nobody out there. So it's only can get better.
The problem is that film exists now on him, right? So he was doing that at a historic rushing pace. His yards per carry was historically high. It was the highest ever. No quarterback has ever rushed for more yards per carry than Drake Maye was doing last year. That won't happen again, especially if teams don't have to cover anybody and they just say, well, you know what? We won't let you run and try to beat us with this absolute fucking bad news Bears-esque wide receiving core that the New England Patriots insist on running out there since Bill Belichick's been in charge. What the fuck is going on? If they don't draft Ted McMillan in this draft, I'm going to actually write a letter to Robert Kraft requesting they fire everybody and he sell the team.
Eric, give me a name or two that you think just like can calm Patriots fans, including Steve and like Drake Maye dynasty shareholders that could maybe get brought in here. I threw out Stephon Diggs. I threw out Amari Cooper. And any draft buzz that you think, or anyone left in free agency out there?
Yeah, I mean, I said it when the Godwin news came down. Steve just said it right now. This all but locks Ted McMillan going to the Patriots
At 4?
Four is probably a bit of an
brother.
overpay, but to Steve's point, right? Like, you have one opportunity to support your rookie quarterback while he is still affordable with expensive weapons, and you manage to piss down your leg with regard to addressing that opportunity in free agency. You have to be willing to now overpay in the draft to get a guy like Ted McMillan. Maybe you can try to get cute and move back a few spots, whatever. Most aggregated
Take
big
Travis
boards.
Hunter at 4 is my thought, right?
Yeah, but at that point, you're not necessarily getting a dedicated wide receiver, and also he's not the same wide receiver prospect as Ted McMillan. I would much rather have Ted McMillan as a pure receiver, right? So I think that's name number one. Whether it's 4, whether they move back to 6 or 7, whatever, he has to be a huge priority for them in the draft itself. Alternatively, the number 4 overall pick, it's kind of juicy. Maybe a team like, I don't know, the Cincinnati Bengals, who are having a hard time coming to terms on a long-term contract with T. Higgins, would be interested in that pick with some other picks mixed in there, right? Like the free agent pool at wide receiver was woefully thin this year, and they struck out on all of the big names out there, even some of the ones that got released. Now they have to try to compensate for that through the trade market, through the draft, whatever it may be. I don't think an aging, coming off injury Stephon Diggs is going to excite anybody in New England faithful, and he's arguably the best name still left on the board out there.
Staying with quarterbacks, I'm going to put Baker Mayfield as one of my biggest winners based on Chris Godwin going back. Yes, he does lose Liam Cohen, so we have questions about the passing game coordinator, Josh Grizzard, taking over the OC and the play calling. However, the development of Jalen McMillan down the stretch, very, very valuable to go along with Mike Evans, who still seems to have it. Chris Godwin coming back on that 3-year, $66 million deal. And then Cade Auden at tight end. And plus, you got Bucky Irvin, Rashad White in the backfield. This is arguably one of the most loaded offenses in the NFL. And they have chemistry together. Most of these guys have been playing together for at least a couple of seasons now. I'm certainly not projecting Baker for 41 touchdowns again, Eric, but it makes it easier to kind of swallow that current quarterback 8 price tag. Like, I don't really want to take a quarterback in that range. Like, I'm fine. Like, I lost so much Drake Maye share, and I'm fine with waiting for these other quarterbacks, even in the quarterback 20 range, grabbing a couple. But Baker, you got Mahomes at QB6, Bo Nix QB7, Kyler QB9. Like, in that range, is Baker, now that Godwin back, like kind of seeming like the best option, or maybe the second best option, depending on how you feel about Nix?
I don't know if I'd say he's the best option in that range. Kind of like you were alluding to. I'm not a big fan of drafting quarterbacks at that part of the draft in general, right?
Right.
I think he's in a good position to return reasonable enough value off of his ADP, which is kind of all you can say as we sit here in March, right? You mentioned Chris Godwin coming back. That's obviously a huge windfall for him, especially in the context of his willingness to do so at a hometown discount. The thing that I think is even more promising for him is what you led with, right? Josh Grizzard, the Grizzler. Yes, he is a new OC. He'll be calling the plays this year, but he is familiar with the system, right? There's not going to be this huge shift in nomenclature and cadence and, how you structure your play calling in your sheet, right? Like by and large, we're just talking about kind of a rinse and repeat from last year. And we saw how prolific that was for Baker Mayfield. So not going to get a ton of news, right? Not the splashiest off season for the Buccaneers, but a lot to be excited about if you're Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of sticking with the quarterbacks there, Eric, one of your winners is Caleb Williams of Chicago. And man, I love what Ben Johnson's doing out there. I feel like he's just taking his blueprint that they kind of put together with Detroit and doing it once again out there in the Windy City. They go trade for Joe Tooney. They make another trade for a lineman. And then they also come out swinging in free agency and give maybe the top overall lineman on the block right now, Drew Dahlman, a massive 3-year, $42 million deal. He's 26 years old coming over from the Falcons. So Eric, like I agree. I think Caleb Williams is one of the biggest fantasy football winners.
Yeah, by a long shot in my book, right? And if you really want to zoom out a little bit more, Chicago Bears like low key have won 2 or 3 off seasons in a row now. Like they are absolutely revamping this franchise. And you hit the big rocks here, right? Ben Johnson coming in, obviously there's a lot of excitement about him. He was kind of the apple of the eye in the coaching market this offseason. Traded for Joe Tooney, traded for Jonah Jackson was the name that you were looking for, and then immediately scooped up Drew Dahlman.
Yeah.
And now this is a line that goes from below average to mediocre to probably one of the top 10, 12 units heading into the season. We'll see how they come together. They certainly have the upside to play above that. And you talk about Caleb Williams being able to develop with Johnson. You talk about the array of weapons that he has around them. I mean, Chicago is now being whispered to be interested or in on the Ashton Genty sweepstakes with their top 10 draft pick. I mean, this entire player acquisition cycle for the last couple of off seasons have been really putting Caleb Williams in a position to succeed. And we have to keep in mind, Jaden Daniels was electric as a rookie last year. If it weren't for him, Caleb Williams' rookie campaign would be one of the better campaigns in recent memories, right? So it's not like he completely stumbled his way through his first season. He obviously had his warts, but there's a lot of promise that he showed, especially down the stretch run. And I think he can really just double down on that momentum with the new pieces and a little bit more time in the pocket.
I'm excited, man. I think Ben Johnson is going to be able to get the most out of the weapons they currently have there. I think Cole Kmet, I've always been, kind of fuck Cole Kmet guy. And, his mom still won't follow me back on Instagram after several years of trying. Regardless, though, I think that the Bears team is going to have a lot of interesting pieces. I'm excited to see what they do in the draft. I'm hoping that, or I'm at least projecting right now that Genty is going to go to the Saints in the top 10, but potentially he goes to Chicago as well. And if not, maybe they add another bruiser to kind of complement Swift out there. So Steve, Caleb Williams, definitely arrow pointed up, I think, after all these positive moves made by big Ryan Poles.
You hope it is, right? I think the one thing that, while he is a winner because they're putting all these weapons around him and they're putting an offensive line in him, is there is a downside to this that can be, detrimental to, is that the pressure's on now, right? Like the excuses are out the window. The offensive line is better. The weapons are all there. It's time for Caleb Williams, to take that step, right? He can't, while his rookie year was fine, this dude came in with a lot more promise than fine, and a lot more work went into making sure he was successful than we got out of him, right? So the time is now, right? Going back to the Drake May argument I made, this is how you build around a young quarterback. This is perfect. Everything they're doing is absolutely perfect. They are trying their best, putting a great coach, great offensive line, great wide receivers, and now potentially drafting a once in a 5-year span running back kind of guy. This could be a really great situation for Caleb Williams, but it's time for Caleb Williams to take the reins and deliver. So hopefully that arrow keeps pointing up. I'm rooting for the guy. I think he's a good guy, so I'm hoping he succeeds.
Anthony Richardson, also a quarterback that we're going to touch on tonight. And Eric, it's someone that you have as a loser after the signing of Daniel Jones, still only 27 years old. The Colts go out and get a veteran to compete with A-Rich on a 1-year, $14 million deal. What are you thinking about Anthony Richardson here? Would you have any interest for him in best ball currently? Are you getting panicked if you're a dynasty manager as well?
Context matters on both of those questions, right? Starting at the macro level, like for the Colts to go out and bring in a younger veteran to compete with Anthony Richardson and pay him the amount of money that they're paying Daniel Jones, I think it can proceed up to $14 million. Very clearly, they have turned the page on this chapter of their quarterback room, right? Like, they kind of signaled at it and hinted at it when they brought in Joe Flacco last offseason, and then when they benched him unceremoniously for Joe Flacco, who looked every bit his age there under center. For whatever reason, the Colts are completely out on this guy. And Daniel Jones, so
you're telling me, like, right now, if I have him in dynasty, like, I should be willing to take 75 cents on the dollar on A-Rich?
Maybe. When I say the context matters, I'm going out and acquiring as much Anthony Richardson as I can in dynasty, because I think there are going to be managers that see this news and accept 60 cents on the dollar, right? 70 cents on the dollar.
I'm getting worried. I'm getting worried, brother. I got the shares.
It's fair to be worried, because the most beneficial asset that you can have for your stable of quarterbacks in Superflex is stability. And his situation is anything but stable right now. So maybe he plays his way into holding this job in Indianapolis. I think he's got a long way to go, because the front office and the coaching staff clearly don't want that to be the outcome. But then, when he gets out into the open market, like, maybe he lands with a Carolina and he has a hard time, picking it back up, or maybe he lands with a Tampa Bay, to use both sides of the Baker Mayfield analogy, and can, really rejuvenate his career down the road. So, there are now more question marks for his long-term prospectus, and that is why dynasty managers will sell him for cheap, and why I want to go buy him on the cheap, because he certainly is not without his flaws. But he's also 22 years old, and I'm pretty sure he started like less than 25 games across his college and NFL career, right? So there is still a lot of development. There's still a lot of upside there, and we know that he's an athletic freak of nature. But Daniel Jones, who is a free agent for the first time in his career, I mean, he's not going to Indianapolis if there's not reason to believe that he can play his way into this job, right? We see these kind of bridge quarterbacks bounce around on 1-year deals all the time, and they tend to pick places where they think that they can win the job, and that just doesn't spell a whole lot of good things for Anthony Richardson in the Colts context.
Well, similar quarterbacks too, right? Like, can kind of do similar things with their legs, so it wouldn't be changing the offense totally if they did have to go to Daniel Jones. But Anthony Richardson, I still think at the current price tag, like, you could take a swing in best ball, at least quarterback 21. It's not going to kill you. And if I'm a dynasty manager, I'm just holding tight, right? Like, if someone's still willing to give me top level dollar on him, then I would take it. But I think you just got to hold tight and hope the upside can break through eventually. Steve, speaking of Daniel Jones, you have one of his former wide receivers as a winner. Darius Slayton, now with the New York Giants, signs a brand new 3-year, $36 million deal. And D. Slayton, a guy very close to my heart. I was hoping the Steelers would actually make a run for him at the deadline. They did not. Darius Slayton signs for another 3 years in New York. And people like to shit on Darius Slayton, but he has been wildly productive for fantasy at different venues in his career, specifically his rookie year when he had a wide receiver 3 season, scoring touchdowns like a madman, all came to a halt in the championship game. I remember playing him, I think it was 2019, and got 0. But besides from that, this guy's been great, other than he burned me that year in the Dynasty Championship. Won't forgive him for that, but love Darius Slayton, and you do too, it seems like.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I when I picked him as a winner, I picked him as a winner for real life. This man got wide receiver 2 money and is not really like a real wide receiver 2 on this team. Now, I do think he's actually better than he's ever been utilized. Every single time
I agree
they've needed to lean on this guy, he delivers. And it's like, it seems every time that they're like, hey, there's only Darius Slayton, like Darius Slayton has to start, he goes for 100 yards. So I'm wondering, like, I don't know what this weird hard-on is that this coaching staff has for Wan'Dale Robinson, but I do think he's actually a little bit of a downgrade from what Darius Slayton gives you, because Malik Neighbors is actually so much more effective as a possession receiver, right? Kind of cutting that short to intermediate routes and not taking the top off the defense, which is what Darius Slayton does so well. I think Darius Slayton could really, if used properly, have a Rashid Shaheed kind of season. And I think that with the money they threw at him, I think the Giants see that as well. I'm starting to believe that they're just like, you know what? He's kind of undeniable. And because every time he really does, he goes out, he's a gamer, he shows it, he gets it done. He's a grinded out kind of guy, has good hands, good separation skills. I don't understand why he wasn't a bigger target on the market, and why a team like, I don't know, Seattle didn't go and get him.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Darius Slayton. He's going off wide receiver 96 right now in best ball drafts. So I'm willing to shoot my shot if we're getting that late in drafts. And I do agree with you. I think maybe this is a downgrade for Wan'Dale Robinson just because they invested in Darius Slayton. They brought him back, a guy they drafted. So someone they've seen and developed, and obviously they like him as a locker room guy. So congrats to Darius Slayton for getting that bag. Also potentially a sneaky best ball guy. And speaking of sneaky best ball target, what about Javonte Williams? He's a winner for me out in Dallas. The Cowboys made probably the most Cowboys move ever, and they signed Javonte Williams to a 1-year, $3 million deal instead of re-signing Rico Dowdle, keep him in-house after 1,000 yards on the ground a season ago. Javonte Williams, he's averaged just 4 yards per carry in his career, including under 3.7 YPC since coming back from that torn ACL. However, he was the RB2 in the 2021 class coming in out of North Carolina. And I feel like, he's not absolute rubbish by any means. Like, I don't know how much he does have left in the tank, but at the same time, like, it feels like whoever the Cowboys put in this starting role, usually does pretty well. And like, I don't know if he will be the starter. I could see the Cowboys potentially going out, adding someone in the most loaded running back class in the past 2 decades. But I mean, Steve, we didn't think this time last year Rico Dowdle would be the starter for the Cowboys, and he ends up holding on. So I'll take my shot on Williams at his current RB 58 price tag and see if he continues to move up boards a little bit.
I mean, you'd have to, right? Because trying to predict what the Cowboys are going to do, what the hell is going on in Dallas? Like, it's almost like watching Jerry Jones just like slide into like dementia, right? Like, all these moves that they're doing make no sense. It's kind of like there's no plan. Are they bringing Mike McCarthy back? Are they not bringing Mike McCarthy back? Yes, they are. No, they're not. Why are we signing this one? Are we going this one? And it's a mess. There would be no shock on my end if they don't bring in another running back to compete for the starting job. None whatsoever. Or if they like go out and they draft like a round 7 running back and they're like, oh yeah, he's there for like to spell him. But you can almost see Jerry Jones' thought process here. He's like, why am I going to spend money at the running back position? I don't want to spend money at the running back position because I did that with Zeke and it didn't work. So now we'll never do it again. Right.
He's going to go add like Marcus Yarns in like the 7th round or something like that.
Exactly. It's going to be something ridiculous.
No, I actually love Marcus Yarns. So someone worse than Marcus Yarns, but that variety.
It's just not going to work. Whatever it is, this isn't going to work. I'll tell you that right now. Javonte Williams is not going to put up a good season. It doesn't really matter. I
think he could on volume. I think he could on volume, brother. Like they have nothing. I mean, they got Deuce Vaughn back there. That's it, man.
I know. It's just, again, you know what it is? It's like that Najee Harris thing, right? But just imagine Najee Harris if like he was worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just not good. Yeah. And I loved Javonte Williams coming out of UNC. I watched him for years torment my Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah.
It's a no for me, dog. Like, it's I'm not in on Javonte Williams this year.
Eric, what do you think, man? Like, RB 58, can you if the price stays that way for now, can you shoot a couple darts at him?
I think that you can, specifically in the context of that price tag, right?
Yeah.
As Steve so thoroughly detailed, the only thing that we can expect out of this Dallas Cowboys organization and front office is chaos, right? There is strong sentiment and loose consensus that they'll be looking at one of the the premier running backs in this year's loaded class, a top 2, 3, 4 kind of guy. But also this time last year, there was pretty solid consensus that they were going to look at a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley or one of the big names in the free agent class at running back, and they decided not to, right?
Yep.
And the need hasn't really changed on this offense. So it's not out of the question that they can convince themselves that they have addressed their running back concern in a very cost-effective way by bringing in a young 24-year-old guy that has some upside. It's not the decision that I would make, right? It's a choice. But because that's on the range of outcomes, a guy sitting around RB60 is at least worth a dart or two. And we have to keep in mind, like, we talk about how explosive he was at North Carolina. We talk about, the optimism there was for Javonte Williams heading into his early part of his career.
Mm-hmm.
This dude didn't just tear his ACL. He exploded his entire knee to the point where it's reasonable to expect it to be a longer than typical, ramp up time, right? We talked about Chris Godwin earlier in tonight's show, right? Like, that's one of the more comparable knee injuries out there. And he didn't look like his full self until 2.5 seasons later. So,
well, hang on. All right. Like, there's
just enough out there to where it's worth RB58.
You just compare Apple to like a fucking.
They're not the same caliber players.
No,
right? That's one of the closest comps to that specific injury. Is what I'm getting at.
No, guys, I love it. And, Javonte is definitely someone I'll be taking some shots on. And I remember at the Scott Fishbowl live draft, putting down a couple beers down there with the fine people of Washington, D.C. I took Zeke Elliott like late in the Scott Fishbowl thinking that over Rico Dowdle, and Rico kept falling. And eventually, it felt stinky. And then eventually someone dropped Rico that year. So I was able to kind of get them both and feel okay about it. But yeah, like, dude, I don't know. I'm not going to sleep on a potential starter in the Dallas backfield again. I'll at least take a couple shots in some of these.
You'll be taking plenty of shots if you're relying on Javonte Williams.
Yeah, very, very true. Guys, let's mix it up here a little bit. We're going to play a cut one game, sticking with some NFL free agency topics and some St. Patrick Day fun over on the other side of a little off the top.
A little off the top, ain't talking about a fade or a crop. Steady hand, know when to stop. Just a little off the top. Whoa, easy now.
Just a little off the top. We're going to give you a couple different options. Let us know below in the chat as well which one of these options you would cut, starting with cut one, recently signed wide receiver from your redraft fantasy football boards, Josh Palmer. Bags a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Buffalo Bills. Dyami Brown, he gets a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Mac Hollins joins the Patriots on a 2-year, $8.4 million deal. Eric, which one of these recently signed wide receivers do you want no part of in redraft formats this season?
All of them. Which I think is
not
why
the game. That's not the game.
Which is why I think we've put them on this particular list. I guess of the lot, I would let Mac Hollins go, right? There have been plenty of circumstances where Mac Hollins has been on the field a lot as he projects to be for New England this year upcoming. And his absolute pinnacle, his peak, was 9.1 fantasy points per game, right? That was back in 2022. His second best was last year, where he got you under 6 fantasy points per game, right? I just don't think that he has the skill set to where he's going to command much, if any, attention from Drake Maye. And this is even before presuming that New England still goes further to address the position. So smell you later to Mac Hollins.
Yeah, I'm right there with Eric, Steve, because I like Dyami Brown actually here in Jacksonville. There's not a lot down there right now as far as pass catching weapons. You got Brian Thomas Jr. who's going to be an alpha. You got Travis Etienne who's going to work out of the backfield a little bit. And we've talked about Brenton Strange in the past at tight end, former Penn State Nittany Lion. But aside from that, like Dyami Brown is the wide receiver 2-3, depending on what you want to think of Gabe Davis. And I don't think Gabe Davis is long for there by any means either.
Yeah, I think Diami Brown's probably the third. I think Parker Washington could probably sneak into that second
Oh, that's
spot for
okay.
Jacksonville. But I'm following the money. Matt Collins is the guy who's getting paid the least. He's the most cuttable. Like, that contract actually could probably, there's a chance he doesn't even make the team with a contract like that. So I don't want Matt Collins. And like Eric said, I mean, he's had all the opportunity in the world. I mean, he's probably going to
play. He's probably going to play the X, right? Like, he's going to be the X.
Maybe, but
That's what he plays.
Kayshon Boutte actually came on pretty good last year for the Patriots. And I don't think Matt Collins is going to be pushing too many guys. And like we all assume or hope, I guess in my case, someone's going to get signed to New England. They need an X receiver. And I just expect them to do something. Again, Matt Collins had Josh Allen throwing on the ball last year, and nobody was doing anything after Keon Coleman got hurt in that Buffalo offense. And he was
good in the playoffs. He was good in the postseason.
Yeah, oh my God.
Had a couple anytime TDs, baby. I remember people tashing him on the internet.
Then draft him for anytime TDs. I mean, but Jesus Christ, these playoff Linsanity runs that people get these contracts on, or everyone gets a dick so hard for these 2-game stretches. That's how you wind up with Kadarius Toney. That's how you wind up with a fucking Kadarius Toney. So
Gabe Davis.
Yeah, Gabe Davis, same thing,
Gabe
right?
Davis,
It's but he went for 4 touchdowns in a playoff game. It's yeah, because the other team didn't give a shit that he was on the field. They forgot about him. If you suck bad enough, sometimes teams just will be like, whatever, we'll put the janitor on you. So no, I'm not going to draft Matt Collins based on a decent playoff run.
Okay,
I think the other two actually have talent comparatively, are more talented receivers.
Matt Collins must like the cold, because it started out in Vegas, ends up making his way down to Atlanta, and then goes to Buffalo, and now staying up in the cold up in New England. Doesn't wear shoes either, so he's just taking the snow right on the bare.
He's a weird dude.
Bare feet. So appreciate him on that one. Next cut one, gentlemen. Cut one, Longshot Super Bowl winner for their free agency moves. New Orleans Saints currently going off to win the Super Bowl 180-1. They paid Chase Young 3 years, $51 million, brought back Jawan Johnson 3 years, $30 million. Also added Justin Reed for 3 for $31.5 million as well. The New England Patriots, Steve's New England Patriots, they paid Milton Williams the biggest free agency contract to date so far, 4 years, $104 million. Young guy coming out of Philly, didn't get the notoriety deserved with just such a loaded class over there in Philly. Carlton Davis, the talented cornerback coming out of Detroit, 3 years, $54 million. Harold Landry, 3 for $43 million. And then they still got guys like Robert Spillane, Morgan Moses, Josh Dobbs at quarterback, Kyrus Tunga, Mac Hollins as well. And then the Carolina Panthers, 160-1, currently going off to win the Super Bowl. They added Chiefs defensive end Tershawn Wharton for a 3-year, $51 million deal. Rams defensive tackle Bobby Brown, 3 for $21. Offensive linebacker Patrick Hones, cornerback Michael Jackson. So a lot of young guys, not necessarily noteworthy guys though, Steve. Who are you cutting from your betting card if you wanted a Super Bowl long shot based on these free agent moves?
I'm cutting the Patriots. They're still the worst team out of the group.
Do you like the Milton Williams signing, or do you think that was an overpay?
No, it's an overpay because it didn't address anything. This team is building themselves. They still have Bill Belichick running the show, and their defense is going to be this is why I hated the fucking Mike Vrabel signing. It's so annoying that it's I'm not even a Patriots fan, right? But I live in the area, so I kind of have to just deal with it. And they went and they brought in they kept Gerard Mayo and then fired Gerard Mayo, and then they brought in Mike Vrabel. And instead of going after Ben Johnson and trying to rejuvenate the team and change the culture, because Belichick left it, they're so stuck in the past. I've even read reports that our facilities suck. It's an old stadium. It's kind of ugly. People don't want to be here. And we're we're going to sign defense. We're going to win with defense. Your defense was all right last year. It's your offense couldn't score. So this team is so busted. We addressed needs that we didn't have. Carlton Davis getting $20 million a year is mind-blowing to me because we watched him against DK Metcalf. We all watched that game that he played against Seattle. He literally just is going to pass interfere the teams and give him a free walk down to the 1 yard line. He's a flag machine. we could have waited on cornerback, paid Chris Godwin with some of that money, and then drafted Travis Hunter and had him be the second cornerback opposite Christian Gonzalez. There were better ways to go about this at the New England Patriots. There is something.
It feels
that
like
happens.
they spent their money a little loose too, right? It feels like
And
they spent.
Remember
Yeah.
a few years ago when they had the most cap space and they spent the most free agency like ever, but we wound up with fucking Hunter Henry and Johnny
Hunter-
Smith, Nelson
yeah.
Aguilar, and like it was just like they're like, well, we spent money.
I was hot on
you
Nelson
went-
Aguilar that
Yeah,
season,
you
though.
went and spent $100 million on a fucking Chevy Cavalier.
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, why would you do this?
That's a good comp.
Like-
That's a good comp.
Something happens to NFL GMs where they think too much. I think like they try to make that move that's like
Paralysis
"Ha,
by
look-
analysis, dude. Yeah.
they're like, look how great I am. Look how much of a genius I am. And all of this speaks to that, where it's just they lose their fucking minds and don't just make the simple decision of we need a wide receiver. Make that your priority. They're like, well, we're the Patriots. We don't overpay people. Fuck you. Start overpaying somebody.
I should have known not to put the Patriots on this list because I was just going to get Steve wound up again. To me, Eric, I think there's a clear answer. You can doubt the Patriots moves, but I think the Saints with the cap hell they're in and paying Chase Young 3 years, $51 million, bringing back Jawan for a very hefty price tag as well of $10 million a year, and then adding Justin Reed. Good safety. Dude can kick the ball a little bit too, so versatile guy, but at the same time, just feels like some
Travis Hunter.
Yeah, it feels like some egregious overpays for the Saints who are tight on cash, to say the least.
Yeah, look, I'm never going to stake much money on the Saints being competent. In terms of the the construct of this question, there is a clear answer, and it is New England Patriots. A lot of this has to do with the price tag, 75-1, whereas the other two are 160 and 180-1, respectively. The Patriots
I didn't even think about the odds.
They're a bit of a better team than the other two, but they're not to the point where they should be roughly half the odds, right? They should be like a 120 to 140.
It's because they have Drake Maye. I think the books
shot.
are very high on Drake Maye in general.
And that's the practical consideration here, right? If we were taking the actual odds out of this, it's very clearly New Orleans that you're scrapping here, because New England has a promising quarterback in Drake Maye. Carolina started to show that they could get a little bit out of Bryce Young, and they've actually been spending their money quite effectively over these last couple of off seasons. And New Orleans is still broke and has the better of Derek Carr or Spencer Rattler under center this year. So, I mean, I could see them being the first overall pick heading into 2026.
Okay. All right. I love it. Also, love, we got Royal in the chat tonight saying, evening,
Royal.
fellas. Good to see you, Royal. I know he's coming over from the 19th hole. That's our PGA betting program that just ended up. Hope you're having a great evening. Thanks for joining us over here as well, Royal. And also Angie saying, love that lead. And yeah, we try to customize all our drops here, man. We have a great artist who hooks us up. That's my buddy Nate Miller, aka Ism, on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're getting your music. And we appreciate him giving us some dope drops for all the segments and our intro as well. So, gentlemen, we got two more questions here for you. Cut one St. Patrick's Day movie. Actually, yeah, let's start there. Irish Wish 2004. When the love of Maddie's life gets engaged to her best friend, she puts her feelings aside to be a bridesmaid at their wedding in Ireland. This is starring Lindsay Lohan in the Redemption Tour. Luck of the Irish. I think you guys all probably remember this one. 2001 Disney Channel movie. Teenager Kyle Johnson must battle for a gold charm to keep his family from being controlled by an evil leprechaun. And then Leprechaun, the movie itself, 1993, an evil, sadistic leprechaun goes on a killing rampage in search of his beloved pot of gold, starring a young Jennifer Aniston. Steve, you are our movie expert here at IBT. You also have your own betting program over there where you bet on movies. You make money on entertainment betting. So which of these St. Patrick's Day movies are you cutting?
Yeah, I'm cutting Irish Wish, and I don't really have to think about it. Like, here's the thing.
Lohan, man, come on, have a heart,
no,
Steve.
I won't. Not now. Like, if we were talking, like, listen, I'm not cutting a Disney Channel original back in like the prime Disney Channel years. No, absolutely not. And you know me, and if you've ever watched Popcorn and Root Beer, you know I'm a horror guy. I love horror movies, even terrible ones like Leprechaun. I love horror movies. When I was a kid in like high school or middle school and I'd get sick and stay home from school, Leprechaun was always there, always on TV, always on the Sci-Fi Channel, weirdly enough. And it got me through some bouts of flu usually.
Yeah.
But the Irish Wish, the concept's a little too cheesy for today's movies, I think. And it just doesn't sit with me. I'm just like,
Feels like
meh.
a Hallmark program a little bit.
It feels like
Oh,
a Hallmark program, and like
Yeah.
that's such a terrible like style of like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in love with the groom, but I'll go anyway. Like that's just like that Friends Rachel and whatever the Christ that Ross's Emily, Ross's awful wife for a second there. Like, isn't that the
Mm.
same storyline? Like she was
Yeah.
there, wrong name said. It all just seems very Hallmarky and really cheesy, and Lindsay Lohan deserves better. So I'm going to hold her to a higher standard and
Ooh.
say that she should have aimed higher and gotten something better, like Mean Girls 2.
Eric, are you familiar with The Luck of the Irish? Absolute banger. But back in the day, one of my favorite Disney Channel original movies growing up. I mean, you can't say enough fun things about that movie. You got, the hills of Lake Erie up there, and very fun movie for the kids. Hopefully you're showing it to your younger ones this year.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that that it even made this list. It was even being considered as a cut candidate. It is the far and away top choice among these three. Look,
Is it the best? Is it the best St. Patrick's Day movie, Luck of the Irish?
These are the only three, I think. So
Yeah, I mean, it's
they make
not
it a ton of
exactly
St.
a
Patrick's Day
competitive
movies.
space, right? But yeah, I mean, of the three, clearly, I'm struggling to think of another one. I'm sure there's one or two that I'm forgetting. But moreover, Steve said it right, like that, like early 2000s Disney original movies generation just has a complete stranglehold on me, right? Like I will watch
Yeah.
every single one of them.
Yep.
Leprechaun, like the OG, gotta give props to the goats. And look, I'm not out here trying to participate in any sort of Lindsay Lohan redemption tour. So smell you later, Irish Wish.
Wow. Kyle's in the back end also throwing out some St. Patrick Day's movies. Kyle, Quiet Man with John Wayne and Margaret O'Hara.
My guy. All right, we'll qualify this best St. Patrick's Day movies in the last 60 years.
Yeah, for real, that we were actually born for.
Kyle, no respect for your guy John Wayne. How about it?
Oh, it's rough.
It's
That's-
more disrespect to Margaret O'Hara, a queen. All right.
Hey, listen, I love Margaret O'Hara. Okay, like don't
Really
be coming
not
at me.
enough.
No, not enough, because the movie was made before my dad was born.
All right, we're rounding it out here. Cut one, St. Patrick's Day tradition. Kegs and eggs. This is something me and my college buddies used to do. We had IU patties. That was a big tradition at our school. Also, my friends up in Borough, I know they participate in kegs and eggs. It's beer, it's eggs. Local bars do it. Friend groups do it. Very fun tradition. There's the Irish car bomb tradition as well. Guinness, a little Bailey's, a couple shots of Jameson mixed in there. You drop the JMO into the Irish car bomb of Guinness, and you got to chug it all. And then, of course, some green beers as well. Eric, I know you're a guy who you're from the South, so I don't know how they celebrate St. Patrick's Day down there. I don't know if you're doing Irish car bombs. I don't know if you're doing green beers or not, but your thoughts here on St. Patrick's Day traditions, and are you Irish yourself as well?
No Irish heritage in these veins. I don't know what you're doing to the South. Breaking news: St. Patrick's Day has made its way to the South part of the United States. We do all of the same things.
People I know people in Chicago go hard for it. Of course, up in Boston, a lot of Irish heritage too. So that's why I say that. I guess don't mean to be smitten the great state of Texas and the fine folks down there with you.
Yeah, maybe varying degrees of going hard, but definitely still a celebration. Definitely fulfill all of the traditions that you've laid out here. I'm kind of torn on this one because I feel like Kegs and Eggs is a celebration that is not exclusive to St. Patrick's Day. There are plenty of times where I'm having a cocktail or a beer with breakfast that are not specifically on St. Patrick's Day.
But is it a keg? Is it a keg? Is it straight up like it's Kegs and Eggs? Like it has to be some like light ass beer. You know what I mean? Like some light, like you're not drinking an IPA with your eggs. Like you're drinking a little fucking Bush Light, a Natty Light,
Little Busch
American Light,
latte.
little Pennsylvania styles. You know.
Look, I'm never going to strike through some hair of the dog, regardless of what type of beer or alcohol it is. Irish car bombs are delightful. They are a fun cocktail and shot to take. And all of that crappy green dye in the beer doesn't sit too well in my tum. So I'll cut green beer in a surprising upset even to myself.
I'm with you actually. I'm gonna give it 2 for green beers. I'm just not a huge green beer fan. Like I would just rather drink my beer normal and like I can have green on. I can celebrate other ways. So, I'll take a little Irish car bomb, and I've only ever done one Irish car bomb, so I feel like that's something I would need to revisit. I was a bit young when I was doing that as well.
We're putting it on the shot wheel for DNO then.
Oh, that might not be a bad one. I did say I'm going to try to do some shot wheels with the people at our draft party out there at Draft Night Out. So, last year I was a little banged up from the night before, so I'd take it easy. Steve, any Irish car bombs for you at potential future Draft Night Outs, and what are you cutting here?
This is tough, right? So for me, I'm not a drinker, right? Like I don't drink that much. I'm very rarely partaking in any sort of alcohol. If I am, I definitely don't want it first thing in the morning. That's gross. So I would probably cut keg and eggs. I also want to go back.
I don't know. I don't want to out myself as an alcoholic, but I do love a good beer in the morning sometimes.
Yeah,
on a Saturday.
I can. I'm not that guy. Also, it's Maureen O'Hara. I want to give a little apologies to the queen herself from the classic golden age of Hollywood.
Shout out.
Yeah, don't want to disrespect anyone. But yeah, for me, if you hand me a beer first thing in the morning, like I don't. This is bad because number one, I'm not that Irish, right? Like I have like a little bit floating around in my DNA, but I'm like a Mediterranean dude. I'm like, like we like to drink. Like if we're drinking in the morning, it's wine. Right, like that's what like my people are like. We like a nice, you know what I mean? Like that's just what we do.
Sure.
But yeah, Irish car bomb's cool. I could definitely get behind one. I could do one at Draft Night Out happily. Maybe not happily, but I like Guinness. So, if you're gonna splash something into my drink, I guess I'll take it. But beer first thing in the morning.
You like the concept of green beer though? You get down with that?
It's just better than a morning beer. You know what I mean? Like the only thing like that trips me up more than a morning beer is like a shower beer, right? Like that.
What?
Dude, you're listing elite beers right now.
Yeah. You just
next you're gonna tell me you don't like a cold beer after like mowing the lawn on a Sunday morning.
If I'm thirsty, I don't want beer. That doesn't help. Wow. And even scientifically, I'm right. Like, listen, I'm a healthcare professional, right? So like, if you're thirsty, don't drink alcohol. You're just gonna be more thirsty. I'm bad at these, and you always like put them in when I'm like, on the show, and I'm like, I don't know, like I drinking first thing in the morning. That's so gross.
What about like a tailgate?
Yeah, or college football tailgate, Steve. You went to a Division I school, brother. Like that's
I did.
You tell me that you weren't 4, 5, 12 beers deep when Trey Benson was walking past you at the tailgate a few years ago.
I'm a bit older than Trey Benson, so I was doing it when Dalvin Cook was walking by me at the tailgates. I was a liquor guy when I was a drinker, so I would be usually a few shots deep into Fireball or Jägermeister.
Down Tallahassee.
Down in Tallahassee, but yeah, I guess I could have like a natty daddy or two on my way to the stadium.
Oh, that's a pull. That's a pull.
So, yeah,
winning him over.
Yeah, we got.
I'd still go with the keg and eggs.
Okay,
I can do a green beer.
We got Angie saying, "What is happening?" Those are all the best beers. I agree. Shower beer, at least one shower beer week.
If you drink a shower beer, I just immediately assume you have a problem. Like I'm happy to sponsor whoever's drinking shower beers out there, and like.
Like I've said throughout this show and on all of my appearances, context matters, right? If it's like a Tuesday in the middle of the week and you're cracking open a shower beer while you're getting ready for work,
I don't know if this really a great situation where you're
all love you.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Let me just put this out there because I think we need to talk about this for like in a real context. You are in the shower. You're like, I'm going to get clean right now. Normally it's in the morning or at night, right? Like, and sometimes you shower in the middle, but like no matter what, you're in the shower. And your thought is, you know what would go really great with the soap and the shampoo and the conditioner and whatever the Christ else you need to get done in the shower? You're like standing just ass naked, soaking wet, and you're like, I want a beer to go along with this.
I got
That's
music
fucking
playing in the
crazy.
background. I'm getting ready to go out potentially, have a little primer.
It's 100% about getting gassed up, right?
Yeah,
Like you're
it's a
gearing up for
vibe.
the day. It is
There
a celebration,
no way you'll
right?
ever be
This
able
is
to-
a vacation
that's
thing.
not- to me, it's a cry for help. To me, it's a cry for help. I'm like, are you all right? Like, if I called my buddy, he's like, dude, I just had the best beer in the shower, I'd be like, I can be over as soon as you need. Like, I can come over. We can talk. Like, are you all right?
I feel like it's a vacation phenomenon. That's where most people are.
No, I had a-
literally. Or if you're
I had a
showering
shower
in, like,
beer
the
Saturday
afternoon or
night.
evening, getting
Shower
ready to
beer
go out for
Saturday
the
night.
Saturday evening, we were going out after we had dinner at home. We were gonna go have a couple
You
beers
couldn't
down at
wait.
the local.
You were so eager to start drinking that you couldn't wait till
I
you were
had-
out of the shower.
Yeah,
start
I do.
drinking.
I do in the shower.
Why
brother.
it sounds like a real problem to me, right? Like, I'm
I
wondering,
showered-
like this, and it
I
sounds
shi-
really concerning that you couldn't wait. You're like, would you get the shakes
Seth-
on the way in? Like, you're sitting in there, you're like, I need something. Like,
Seth,
you're
I
just going
would
for
like
a
to
beer.
start by saying that we're all here today because we love you and we
Hi,
want
my
the
name
old
is-
Seth back.
My name's Seth. Hello,
Kyle, help me out. Producer Kyle Scott on the back end. Round us out. Cut one of these. And are you a shower beer guy, Kyle? Like, would you get down with the shower beer here and there? I know our good friend Elliot does.
I do not partake in shower beers often. I can't say that I have not had a shower beer.
Can I ask, Kyle, have they been at the pinnacle of your life when you were drinking shower beers? Were things going well, or were they going just really, really poorly?
It was college, so a little bit of both.
It's usually after a breakup, right? Like, you
Old
went through a
habits died
breakup.
hard, baby.
I don't necessarily want to get into that right now.
Kyle's not trying to be deposed on these airways.
I'm cutting the Irish car bomb. I don't like doing that shit that takes like 6 steps to do, and I don't
Isn't
like
it just-
chugging it.
Isn't it just Bailey's in like?
I don't want to have to chug it, man. That's really
that's fair.
The main
Oh,
crux
come
of the
on.
issue.
I think we got a bunch of lightweights here on the program.
I've openly admitted that I am.
Well, I've seen Kyle drink. He's okay most of the time. He's all right. He can handle his own. Also, make you blood pudding in the morning as well. An elite Irish breakfast meal. I know. I love some pudding. Yeah. Guys, we have gone way over time tonight, but I just want to thank everyone so much for riding with us in the chat, putting up with our bullshit, our shenanigans, our fantasy football analysis as it was. Easiest way you can support all of us here. Like this video if you enjoy this type of content. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Whether you enjoy NFL fantasy football, college football fantasy football, or betting on that particular sport as well. We also have NFL or NASCAR, PGA, and entertainment betting content right here on the channel and on the website, inbetweenmedia.com. Make sure you guys are checking out all the great written content over there. Make sure you're getting your draft night out tickets. Do you want to come draft with us and 200 of our closest friends in Canton, Ohio at the Fantasy Football Expo this summer? Come hang. I'm excited for it. Going to be a really great offseason. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, y'all know what to do. Keep in between. Thank you.